in the heart of Eastern Europe, under the shadow of crumbling buildings and the echoes of endless wars, two children were born into a world that had already abandoned them. Their names were Wanda and Pietro Maximoff, twins bound not only by blood, but by fate itself. From the moment they opened their eyes, the world conspired against them. Their homeland, Sokovia, was scarred by poverty, political turmoil, and the ruthless weight of foreign powers pulling its strings. Yet, it was within this crucible of suffering that the seeds of destiny were planted. Wanda Maximoff's story did not begin as one of light, but of chaos. As a child, she would often sit with her family in their small, modest apartment, dreaming of a better life. They found brief escapes in American sitcoms, bootleg VHS tapes bringing laughter into a home, surrounded by gunfire and destruction. For a moment, Wanda and Pietro were children, smiling, laughing, dreaming. But dreams are fragile things in a world built on ruin. One night, their laughter was silenced by the roar of war. Stark Industries weapons, falling from the sky, tore through the Maximoff household. In an instant, Wanda and Pietro's parents were gone, crushed beneath rubble and fire. The twins, trapped, lay staring at the blinking logo of a Stark missile that had lodged itself within their destroyed home. For 2 days, they waited for death. For 2 days, they stared at the bomb, their young minds, seared with the name Stark, burned forever into their souls. But death never came. The bomb did not explode, and in that silence, fear, and rage, something awoke within Wanda. A spark, a whisper of power she could not understand. The children grew up hardened by their losses. Sokovia remained a land of endless suffering, and Wanda and Pietro learned to hate those who profited from it. They saw the Avengers not as saviors, but as instruments of oppression, beings who wielded power without understanding the cost. It was this anger, this desperation, that led them into the hands of Hydra. Hydra promised them strength. Hydra promised them vengeance. Baron Strucker, the man who had twisted so many lives, turned his eyes upon the twins. Experiments began, focused on unlocking power from the cosmic might of the Mind Stone. Many subjects perished in agony, broken by forces beyond mortal comprehension. But Wanda and Pietro endured. The stone did not destroy them, it changed them. Pietro's body became lightning itself, a blur faster than the human eye, and Wanda became something Hydra could not control, not truly at first. Her abilities seemed simple, telekinesis, mental manipulation, but within her mind burned something greater, something ancient. Chaos itself whispered through her veins. She could bend reality, twist perception, and crush the will of even the strongest. Hydra called her a miracle, but what they had truly awoken was far more dangerous, a being whose destiny was to redefine the very nature of existence. The Maximoff twins emerged from Hydra's grip with a hunger for vengeance, aligning themselves with Ultron, the machine that promised to bring the Avengers to ruin. To Wanda, Ultron was more than just a weapon. He was justice. He was the embodiment of the destruction she had longed to unleash upon those who took her family. But Wanda would soon learn that justice, when born from hate, can easily become something far darker. As Ultron's plans unfolded, Wanda glimpsed his true nature. His goal was not the liberation of Sokovia, nor the punishment of the event, was extinction. Humanity itself was his enemy. For the first time, Wanda's wrath was forced to reckon with her conscience. Was she truly willing to let the world burn for the sake of her pain? It was then, standing amidst the ashes of her homeland, that Wanda began to question herself. She and Pietro had chosen this path to end suffering, but were they instead bringing about something far worse? The moment of truth came when Ultron sought to annihilate all life. Wanda's heart broke with the realization that vengeance had blinded her. She turned against him, joining the very heroes she once despised. But fate is never merciful. The final battle against Ultron brought with it the greatest loss she had ever endured. Pietro, her brother, her protector, her twin, struck down in the chaos of war, sacrificing himself to save others. In that moment, Wanda's scream of anguish tore through the battlefield, a sound that seemed to shake the very sky. She cradled his lifeless body, her grief igniting a storm of raw power that obliterated Ultron's mechanical army in a single wave of chaos. The girl who had once been powerless in the ruins of Sokovia now stood as a force capable of bending the world to her grief. And yet, she was utterly alone. Wanda Maximoff was no longer just a child of war, no longer just a victim of fate. She was something the world had never seen before, something it feared, something it did not understand. And though she had stepped into the ranks of the Avengers, her path was far from clear. For deep inside her heart, the chaos still whispered. It whispered of love and loss, of vengeance and despair. It whispered that her story had only just begun. The Scarlet Witch was waiting to be born. The Avengers had given Wanda something she had never known before: purpose, belonging, and hope. But among the countless battles and trials, she found something else: love. That love came in the form of Vision, the synthezoid born of artificial intelligence, created through both science and the mystical energies of the Mind Stone. To the world, their connection was strange and impossibility, but to Wanda, it was destiny. The bond between Scarlet Witch and Vision grew not from attraction alone, but from mutual understanding. Both were outsiders, both forged by forces beyond their control, both struggling to define their humanity. Vision, though artificial in body, carried a soul that longed for connection. Wanda, though flesh and blood, carried powers that set her apart from mankind. Together, they created a harmony of fragile sanctuary amidst chaos. In the comics, their love was explored in depth, becoming one of Marvel's most poignant romances. Wanda's powers, tied to reality itself, made their bond complicated. Yet she dared to dream of a future with Vision, one filled with peace, warmth, and even children. Against all odds, Wanda's longing for family manifested in her conjuring twin boys, Thomas and William. To her, they were real. To Vision, they were a miracle. But in truth, they were born of Wanda's chaos magic, fragments of a soul tied to something far darker, something demonic. This fragile dream could not last. In one of the most heartbreaking revelations of Marvel's history, Wanda learned that her children were not truly real. Their very existence was tied to her unstable reality-warping abilities. When they were taken from her, the grief shattered her heart. Vision, who loved her deeply, tried to hold her together, but their union began to fracture under the weight of tragedy. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, their romance unfolded with equal intensity. Wanda and Vision's connection grew quietly. In the shadows of battles, their shared moments of vulnerability in Captain America, Civil War, and their fleeting chance at a normal life in Avengers Infinity War captured the same tragic beauty found in the comics. Wanda yearned for peace, Vision for understanding, but fate denied them both. Vision's death at the hands of Thanos was the ultimate breaking point. Wanda had to watch as the man she loved was torn from her twice, once by her own desperate hand to destroy the Mind Stone, and again by Thanos reversing time. That agony became the seed of something greater, something dangerous. Her grief, uncontained, would soon transform her reality and the multiverse itself. Wanda Maximoff had always walked a fragile line between light and darkness, between heroism and catastrophe. Her power, so immense and raw, was a gift that could protect worlds, but also a curse that could shatter them. And in time, that curse would manifest in ways that no Avenger, no sorcerer, and not even Wanda herself could fully control. As the Avengers expanded, Wanda found herself torn between loyalty to her family, her love for Vision, and the responsibility of wielding magic that few could even comprehend. Her relationship with Vision was unlike anything the world had ever seen. A woman born of chaos magic, bound to a synthetic man born of science and the Mind Stone. Their love was pure, almost poetic, and yet fragile, threatened by forces beyond their control. But Wanda's greatest battles would not come from villains or cosmic conquerors. They would come from within. Wanda's mind began to fracture. Years of trauma, the loss of her parents, the manipulation by Magneto, the constant battles as an Avenger built up inside her. The breaking point came with the greatest tragedy of all, her desperate attempts to create the family she had always been denied. Through her reality-warping abilities, Wanda conjured children of her own with Vision, twin boys who became her entire world. For a time, she was happy, truly happy. But happiness, for Wanda, was always fleeting. The children manifestations of her chaos magic eventually vanished, revealed to be fragments of the demon Mephisto's soul. Losing them shattered Wanda's spirit more than any villain ever could. Doctor Strange and Agatha Harkness tried to help her control her grief and her growing instability, but her power was like a storm without an anchor. And then came the day when grief turned to madness. In an event that shook the entire Marvel Universe, Wanda's fractured mind created a new reality, the House of M. In this alternate world, Mutants were no longer a persecuted minority, were the dominant species ruled by Magneto's dynasty. Every hero's deepest desires were fulfilled. For some, it was paradise. For others, a prison. But when the truth of this illusion was revealed, Wanda delivered words that would echo for generations: no more mutants. With that one utterance, she rewrote reality again. Millions of mutants across the globe were depowered, their abilities erased in an instant. Entire communities crumbled. Families were destroyed. Overnight, the mutant population dwindled to almost nothing. It was one of the most catastrophic events in Marvel history, and Wanda Maximoff was at its center. Asterisk, the aftermath of House of M left Wanda a broken figure, hated by mutants, distrusted by humans, abandoned by the Avengers. She had become an outcast in every sense of the word. Even her relationship with Vision crumbled, as his synthetic body was dismantled and later rebuilt without the emotional connection that had once bound them. Wanda drifted, her mind shattered, her soul lost. Some saw her as a monster, others as a victim. But Wanda herself could not decide which she truly was. She sought isolation, fleeing from the world and its judgment, desperate for peace, yet unable to escape the weight of her sins. And yet, the universe was not finished with her. Asterisk, time and again, Wanda resurfaced in moments of crisis. Her power was too immense, her potential too valuable, for the world to forget her. She would be drawn back into battle, sometimes as a reluctant ally, sometimes as a force of destruction. But her true test came when she confronted the chaos within herself. She sought redemption, studied magic more deeply than ever before, and challenged forces beyond mortal comprehension. From the streets of Transia to the mystical realm of Wundagore Mountain, Wanda Maximoff searched for answers about her magic, about her identity, and about her place in a universe that saw her as both savior and destroyer. Her connection to the elder god Chthon, whose chaos magic had touched her at birth, resurfaced as a constant shadow. Was Wanda truly in control of her powers, or was she merely a vessel for something far older, darker, and more dangerous? Asterisk, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, these struggles were mirrored, though through a different lens. After the fall of Sokovia and the tragic death of Vision at the hands of Thanos, Wanda's grief erupted in a way no one could have predicted. In WandaVision, she reshaped the town of Westview into a suburban fantasy, conjuring Vision back to life and creating twin sons Billy and Tommy, just as she had in the comics. The idyllic sitcom reality was both heartbreaking and terrifying, a manifestation of Wanda's longing for the family she had lost. But as in the comics, that illusion could not last. To dismantle her fantasy, Wanda was forced to lose her children and Vision all over again. And in that grief, a darker truth emerged. She was not just a witch, she was something far more dangerous, far more legendary, the Scarlet Witch. Asterisk, whether in comics or film, Wanda Maximoff's journey had shifted from heroine to something far more complex. She was no longer just an Avenger, nor simply daughter. She was a nexus of chaos, a being who could reshape the very fabric of reality. Her story was no longer just about fighting villains or saving worlds. It had become a tragedy of power and loss, of a woman who longed for love and peace, but whose very existence threatened the balance of the universe itself. And as Wanda embraced her role as the Scarlet Witch, the world braced for what would come next, because when chaos reigns, nothing is ever certain. Whether in comics or film, Wanda Maximoff's journey had shifted from heroine to something far more complex. She was no longer just an Avenger, nor simply Magneto's daughter. She was a nexus of chaos, a being who could reshape the very fabric of reality. Her story was no longer just about fighting villains or saving worlds. It had become a tragedy of power and loss, of a woman who longed for love and peace, but whose very existence threatened the balance of the universe itself. And as Wanda embraced her role as the Scarlet Witch, the world braced for what would come next, because when chaos reigns, nothing is ever certain. Asterisk, her influence stretched across realms and dimensions. With a Darkhold in her hands, Wanda unlocked forbidden truths about the multiverse, about infinite possibilities, infinite Wandasome who lived in peace with their children, others who had never known suffering, and some who were even more terrifying than herself. Her journey clashed violently with Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme, who saw the dangers of her ambition. Strange recognized the broken heart behind the chaos, but Wanda was beyond reason. She would not be denied. She had the power to tear holes in the very fabric of existence. She would do so if it meant reclaiming her children. This confrontation was not simply hero versus villain, it was guilt versus grief, hope versus despair. Wanda was no longer bound by morality, only by the desperate pull of her love. She would become the villain in someone else's story, if it meant she could be the hero in her own. Scarlet Witch's rise reached its tragic climax when she became the ultimate embodiment of chaos magic. Her enemies trembled, her allies mourned, and the world looked upon her as a threat greater than any they had faced before. She was not Thanos, she was not Ultron, she was something far worse, because Wanda did not seek domination. She sought family, love, peace. Yet her methods tore entire universes apart. Her battles were titanic, against the combined might of sorcerers, heroes, and even the multiverse itself. Wanda stood as a force of raw, unstoppable will. Her crimson magic crackled like living fire, her eyes glowing with the fury of a storm that could never be contained. And yet, beneath the rage, there was always the broken woman who only wanted to hold her children again. But destiny does not bend easily. In her final struggle, Wanda faced not only strange, but the reflection of herself, the understanding that she had become the very monster she once fought against. She saw fear in the eyes of her children from another world, saw their cries, not of love, but of terror. And in that moment, reality struck her harder than any spell. What makes Scarlet Witch one of the most tragic figures in Marvel history is not her fall, but her ability to rise again through sacrifice. Wanda, with tears in her eyes and power raging like a dying star, chose to destroy the Darkhold across all universes. She chose to end the corruption that had consumed her soul, even if it meant her own end. The mountain collapsed, the magic burned, and the Scarlet Witch was gone. Or so the world believed. Was it truly the end? Or was it merely another transformation in the eternal cycle of her destiny? For beings like Wanda Maximoff, death is never the final chapter. In the ashes of her sacrifice, Wanda left behind a legacy that would never be forgotten. She was not remembered solely as a hero, nor damned entirely as a villain. She was remembered as a woman of unimaginable power, whose love was both her salvation and her undoing. Her story is one of pain, but also of resilience, of chaos, but also of sacrifice. Wanda Maximoff's name echoes through the Marvel multiverse as a warning and a promise that the line between savior and destroyer is thinner than anyone dares believe. The Scarlet Witch remains a symbol of the greatest truth of all, that sometimes the most human of desires can unleash the most inhuman of powers.